Last weekend, I was down visiting my sister where she is now living, but about to leave, which is in a place called Hope near Nelson, top of the South Island. And whenever I'm down there to visit my sister and in the Nelson region, I do my best to go visit one of my mentors from when I was growing up, where I became a young man actually. In my early 20s, I used to work in Motueka, which is in the Tasman Bay region, picking apples every late summer, early autumn. I became very close to a Māori man there called James Smith, who changed his name to Shem Lemech when I knew him in 1997. And when I took on the name Whareus, he took on the name Shem Lemech and started calling himself Shem Lemech. Now Shem was a mentor to me in many ways. Straight edge, he'd come from gangs, very violent gangs in the Hawke's Bay, sort of Gisborne, East Cape region. Had moved to Nelson many years later, had become Mormon, but also was very spiritual, very conscious, and very, very funny. And as a mentor to me, which I never had as a young man, because I lived with my mother, my father was not really around, so I saw my father once a week, but he was not really the father figure that I would like to have had in my life. So Shem was like a father figure to me. He was 20 years older than I was. He was a father figure in many ways. He taught me much about spirituality. In fact, some of the biggest maxims of spirituality I've learnt. For example, when you are shining or looking towards the light, you have to realize that you are casting a shadow behind you, and it is imperative that you deal with your shadow. And I remember the night that we were sitting around. I've said this story before in other videos, but we were sitting around a huge banquet table at a friend Gabby's house above the cathedral one night, eating ice cream and talking away. A bunch of people very close to me, very spiritual people that I knew at that time, who were living in a nexus of spiritual conscious people living in Nelson at the time, or the Tasman Bay region at the time. It was a very, very amazing time to be living down that part of the world. Energetically, it was just effervescent with consciousness rising through the land and imbuing and embodying everyone you met. It was a very powerful time. Now that particular whole region, Tasman Bay region, Nelson region, is completely gentrified, and the energy that was there is neutralized and it has gone underground, and you have to really search for it to find it. But back in the early 1990s, it was a very effervescent place. And one night we were all sitting around a table eating ice cream, and James, Shem Lemech, Shem said, leant over to me and said to me, "Look at these fools, all looking towards the light, not one of them turning around to realize that they are casting a shadow." And that really, boom, hit home for me, and I really understood there and then through his humor, because he was laughing when he said it. And it wasn't being sarcastic, it was just being honest, and he was always finding the humor in the most darkest moments, which was why I loved him so much as a mentor. It was about turning around to face your own shadow. So when I was down there last weekend, I went to Shem. Shem died. When Shem died, he died in the late 90s. And the story goes, he was sitting at that same banquet table that we were sitting at eating ice cream at Gavy's house. And he was eating ice cream too that night. And he said to everyone, "I've got to go." And then he just fell, boom, on the table, fell onto the table head first, slammed into the table, left his body, and his body just collapsed. Boom, head slammed into the table. Everyone thought that he was playing a joke, but he had left his body. He said he had to go. "I got to go," and he just died, boom, at the table. Which is exactly how the man that I knew would have wanted to leave his body, with that direct, humorous, and deeply acknowledging experience, which I've never heard of anyone dying that way before in my life, but that was just how Shem was. It's the way he would have died. He would have known it was time to go, time to leave his body, done his work, he was ready to go, had to go now, see ya, bye, boom, easy, see you later. So when I got back to Moana Nui Kiwa, the country of my birth, I went down to the Nelson region and saw some old friends there I hadn't seen for almost, 6-7 years. And they told me that Shem had died, and they told me where he was buried. So whenever I go down to that part of the country, or whenever I'm ever in that part of the country, I should say, I always go to where Shem is buried. And here's Shem's tombstone here. And when I went there this time to see him, I've been to see him maybe over 20 times in the last, where he's buried, over the last 20 odd years. I've been there down to see him at least twice a year. I go to Hira, where he's buried, his body's buried, to see him. And when I was down there this time, I've never looked at the date of when he died. And this time I looked at the date of when he died. I noticed that the date coincided with the time when I was travelling up the west coast of Australia, and I had a car accident. Let me tell you the story. Let me start at the beginning in regards to the car accident. When I was in Perth, I lived in Perth for a little over a year, Western Australia. I was working in a bar called the International Players Lounge with a bunch of friends of mine that I've met travelling around Perth and also around Australia. And one of my friends who's now living in Australia still, because his son has just turned 21, I think, and he's still living in Perth, Courtney. And two other friends, Adam and Ben, Cornwall, who are surfers, and Adam's girlfriend, Kate, decided to leave Perth in the winter of 1998 and go on a road trip, a surf road trip up the west coast of Australia, eventually up to Darwin, and leave Perth altogether. That was our intention. And then maybe come back for the summer, maybe. This is in the winter, so this is in the August month. And what I didn't realise, I looked at James's gravesite, that he died in August, early August of 1998. That same road trip, the vehicle that we travelled in was a yellow Hilux, Toyota Hilux. And what happened was it was Adam's Toyota Hilux that he'd bought almost a year before for him and his girlfriend from Cornwall, that he'd been dating for almost 3 years. And this is the time before cell phones. The internet was just being used by people. Most people wrote handwritten letters, made long distance phone calls on landlines. This is back in the late 90s. So Adam came to Australia, bought this Hilux, refurbished it for him and his girlfriend who lived in Cornwall to travel around Australia in. But she never arrived. She never arrived. He called up her friends, her family, he wrote letters to her, couldn't get hold of her, emailed her, couldn't get hold of her. She didn't reply to anything. And he was wondering where the fuck she was. And of course, it was beginning to freak him out a little bit after a couple of months, wondering where the hell she was. He couldn't get hold of her. And then a letter came in the mail that was addressed to him when he was staying in Perth. And that letter was a Dear John to Adam, to tell him that his girlfriend of 3 years had left him when he left Cornwall, England, to come to Australia. She had left him for a guy that she had met almost 5 to 6 years before she started dating him, who lived in South Africa. And she had left Adam when he went to Australia. She flew down to South Africa, and she's with this guy in South Africa, and had left Adam after 3 years of being together in a relationship. So Adam was pissed, as you can imagine, and heartbroken, frustrated, angry. He took all his anger out on that vehicle, that Toyota Hilux. He would kick it, he'd punch it, he'd call it a fucking bitch. He would do anything he could. He'd take out all his anger on that vehicle. And despite that, all his friends, me included, we would say to him, bro, it's a vehicle, you have to let it go. You can't associate the vehicle with your ex-girlfriend. We know that you did everything you possibly could to refurbish it so when you travel in it together, you can travel in it in style, but she's not coming. You've met somebody else who's awesome in Perth, Kate, his new girlfriend, who is amazing, and you've got a whole new life now. You've got a whole new life. You have to let that one go. You're moved on. But he couldn't let it go. So we were traveling up the west coast of Australia, and we're having an amazing time. We got to a national park and we went inland on the coast into this national park. The moment that we arrived in the national park, I had this dreaded feeling, intuitive feeling, like we've got to get the fuck out of here. I felt it so tangibly. I felt it like it was a heavy feeling that came over me. I said to everyone there, we've got to go. We can't stay here. We have to leave. It doesn't feel right. We have to leave. We've got to go. No one believed me. No one believed me. Adam, Ben, Courtney, and Kate said, look, we're staying here tonight. We're going to put the tarpaulin up. We'll sleep under the tarpaulin. Everything's going to be fine, far. Relax. We're staying. Chill the fuck out. So I surrendered to what was. I surrendered to being there for that night. So we were there the whole night. And in the morning, as we woke up, just before sunrise, it began to rain. Just a drizzle at first, and it got heavier and heavier and heavier. As we packed up our gear, put it into the Hilux, we drove off. And I was in the front seat, Adam was in the driver's seat, Kate and Ben in the back seat, and Courtney was in the back of the boot, the hub, the compartment at the back, which was all cushions and a mattress where Adam was sleeping with Kate. And on the roof we had surfboards, a huge cylindrical water container that was full of water, our backpacks. We drove out on the road, and we're driving out on mud. The back end of the four-wheel drive, the vehicle was still in two-wheel drive, but the back end of the vehicle was fishtailing, it was sliding out at the speed Adam was driving at, which is about 90 k's an hour on this dirt, muddy road. The back end was fishtailing, was sliding out, and Courtney was pounding on the back of the windscreen of the compartment. Put it in four-wheel drive, because we were sliding out too much. As he was banging on the window, we came off mud and hit sand. In that sand pocket, the front wheel stuck in, the back end spun out, and we flipped, and we rolled once, twice, 3, 4 times, and landed on my side of the vehicle. Now, as it would be, when the vehicle began to roll, the moment this happened, a figure dove through the windscreen at me. Like a figure dove towards me and grabbed me and hugged me. I remember like it was yesterday, and the being that came through the windscreen looked like Sri Satya Sai Baba, who I was a devotee of at the time. And he hugged me and protected me as the vehicle rolled 4 times, and the window on my side crashed and broke and smashed. And then as the vehicle stopped rolling, it landed on my side, and my window was completely smashed and gone. It was all the glass in there was gone completely. So just fragments of glass, and then mud coming out through where the window was towards me. But the windscreen of the vehicle, of the Hilux, had pushed in like this, and had slid in between me and Adam, between the seats, and missed us completely. It had impacted, due to the nature of the water container on the roof. The water container had created a V. As it impacted on the roll, it created a V in the roof. So Adam was on one side, Ben was on one side, Kate was on the other side of the V of the roof, the roof caving in. So Ben was on one side in the back seat, and Kate was on the other side of the back seat. Both of them uninjured. Adam was uninjured. The record was completely written off. Me and Adam crawled out through the windscreen, where the windscreen used to be. We grabbed Kate and Ben out of the back via Kate's side of the vehicle, because Ben was trapped. He couldn't get out his side of the vehicle. And Courtney was like in a washing machine, tumble washing machine, the back seat of the compartment. He was fine. He had a little scratches on his ankle, but that was it. We all got out of the vehicle basically unscathed. All in shock. Me and Ben and Kate grabbed one of the tarpaulins off the roof of the vehicle, went over to a tree. It was still raining, quite heavily. Put the tarpaulin out, erected it, and Ben rolled this enormous hooter, this joint, a big trumpet like that. And Courtney and Adam put on wetsuits, our surfing wetsuits, put the wetsuits on, and then ran down on this muddy road for kilometres to the main road and waved a vehicle down, a tourist minibus, waved the minibus down to come and pick us up and all our gear. And when the guy arrived where the crash site was, he asked us where the bodies were. And we said, well, Adam and Ben's over there. Oh, sorry, Ben and Kate are over there. I'm here, and these two guys. And he's like, how the fuck did you all survive that? That's almost impossible due to the nature of the wreck of the vehicle itself. But we survived it. We survived this incredible accident. And realistically, we should all have been dead. And the first thing I said to Adam, when we got back to Jake's Point, which is where we'd been the day before, we got down to this, well, there's a guest house around Jake's Point we got to, and a backpackers sort of place up the coast there. When we got there that night, man, all the shock was beginning to wear off, and we were all completely silent, sitting outside, rolling cigarettes, passing them around, smoking like chain smoking, still in shock, looking out over the ocean. I remember turning around, looking at Adam, and saying to Adam, "What are you thinking about, bro? What are you thinking about?" Because I could see the look on his face. I knew he was thinking about his ex-girlfriend still in that vehicle, because he associated the two with each other. He said to me, "I'm thinking about my ex." I remember getting up from my seat saying, "Fuck you, dude. Now you have to fucking let it go." And I walked away. So I'm out of here tomorrow. I'm hitching up myself up the coast. I'll see you guys in Broome. Fuck it. I'm out of here. I'm going to go by myself. So I went out, picked up my gear that night, crashed the night, gave everyone a hug in the morning. Then me and Courtney, my Canadian friend, hitchhiked up the west coast of Australia, went to Exmouth, went to Turquoise Bay, Coral Bay, eventually to Broome, and we were there for 3 weeks. I had an amazing experience living in Broome for 3 weeks, waiting for the boys and Kate to show up with a new vehicle with new surfboards. And meanwhile, those two cats, Ben and Adam, and Kate as well, got to, I think it's Nalu, this beach on the west coast of Australia, a world-class surf break. And their two world champions, Martin Potter and Barton Lynch, were, and the four of them, and well, the five of them with Kate as well, hung out for almost 2 weeks surfing with two world champions and hanging out every night playing guitar on the beach and having fires in these little huts at Nalu Beach. Meanwhile, me and Courtney were waiting for them to show up. And what happened was, in the 3 weeks we were up there, we got tired of waiting for them, calling up Perth, Adam and Penn, calling out our friends up in Perth, Adam and Kate and Ben back in Perth. They're not there, not here. No, where the fuck are they? They couldn't get hold of us. We couldn't get hold of them. We didn't know where each of us were. So Courtney and I relocated a camper van from Broome to Perth, and we ate a whole bunch of acid to try and drive all the way 2 days back to Perth, staying awake the whole way. Did a Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas experience. Took a whole shit ton of acid and drove from Broome to Perth to get there as fast as possible to see our girlfriends down there. And when we drove south in the camper van, the morning we left, Adam, Kate and Ben showed up in Broome. We missed each other like ships in the night. But here's the kicker for me after last weekend. When I saw the date that James had died, Shem Lemech had died, on the tombstone, when I saw the date, I thought to myself, holy shit, a penny dropped in my mind and in my heart. And I realized that maybe, just maybe, the being that came through the windscreen and hugged me and protected me as the vehicle rolled, as the accident happened, even though to me, the moment I saw it, it looked like Sri Satya Sai Baba, it could have been Shem Lemech that came through the windscreen, my mentor, my friend, my brother, who had died in that month, perhaps almost before this happened, and hugged me safely, kept me safe during the accident. What an amazing experience to remember that and to have that realization. Thanks for watching. I truly appreciate it. Mā te ua. I'll see you again soon.